Hey everybody, Willie P here. That was a weird delay for the start, but whatever, we're going to keep it in because that's what we do. And today we're going to react to why does every U.S. military branch have pilots? Exploring the difference. I mean, that's a heck of a good question. Why do we not just have them all in the Air Force? Why are they not all just Navy or whatever? I mean, why do we have fighter pilots in the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Air Force? Why aren't they all the same? So hopefully this will explain it. I've never actually really stopped to think about it. It was always just something that was the norm and never question it. So this would be good. Before we get into it, please like, subscribe, send it to a friend, send it to an enemy, send it to your grandma. And without further ado, I say we get into this. What do you say? Yeah.
When most people think of pilots in the military, they either think of Tom Cruise in Top Gun, or they think that every pilot is in the Air Force. However, in reality, every branch outside of the Space Force has its share in military aviation. But why does every branch have pilots? What's the difference
Yep.
between them? Why aren't all of the pilots in the Air Force? We're going to answer all of those questions for you. This
Good.
is Pilots of the U.S. Military.
Cool.
Before we dive into each of the branch's pilots, it's important for you to understand the encompassing similarities they all share. For starters, they all fly aircraft. We're sure you almost fell out of your seat with that one. No matter the branch, every pilot will fly some sort of aircraft, which are generally separated into two different communities, fixed wing and rotary wing. To break that down in layman's terms, it's basically something like jets or helicopters. Every pilot in the US military is a commissioned officer, with the exception of the Army where they can be warrant officers too. We'll touch on that in a bit. That means that every pilot is an officer first, and has other responsibilities outside of just flying. Those are called ground jobs. And for every hour of flying a pilot does, there's countless hours of preparation, rehearsal, briefing, and debriefing. Don't think they're flying from 9 to 5 on any given day. As pilots rank up, they generally do less and less flying. That's just the nature of the beast when it comes to ranking up in the military, especially as an officer. Another thing you need to know about military pilots is that it takes years to train one. You don't just up and join and get into the cockpit. You might think, why does it take years? Well, first off, flying isn't as easy as it looks. It takes a long time to craft the skills needed to be a military pilot. And they aren't just trained in flying. They learn all sorts of stuff about the science of aviation and anything within its scope. Due to the time commitment and cost of training military pilots, their contracts are often upwards of 10 years long. This lengthy time commitment, amongst other factors, has actually led to retention issues, causing a shortage in many of the pilot communities. Perhaps some of you watching this video are hoping to become a pilot. Whether you're here for that, or just here for the information, it's time to jump into our first military pilot community, Army pilots.
Interesting.
Stop.
Army pilots. I knew they existed, mainly rotary, but I think they have some fixed, so.
While the Army is
Oh,
known for things such as infantry and tanks, Army pilots have been a considerable part of its warfighting history.
oh yeah.
They've played integral roles in the battlefield all the way from World War I to recent conflicts in the modern era.
So
In
cool.
fact, Army aviation has been so substantial that the Air Force actually originates from the Army. Before 1947, it was known as the Army Air Force. The more you know. Present day, a majority of Army pilots
We're gonna bypass Army Air Corps too. Okay, cool.
do what they do best, flying rotary-winged aircraft. You might be familiar with some of the helicopters they fly. The AH-64 Apache, CH-47 Chinook,
Been on that.
UH-72A Lakota, and the
Yeah.
UH-60 Blackhawk. But where are the fighter
on that.
jets? Don't all military pilots fly those? Not in the Army. The Army's mission doesn't call for it. Plus, what's more badass than a Blackhawk pilot flying low to the ground with a machine gunner raining hell upon the enemy?
Ooh.
And it doesn't stop there. Army pilots even have their own place in special operations with the prestigious 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. Nicknamed the Night Stalkers, this unit has pilots that are the tip of the spear in aviation, having undergone a strict selection process and having a substantial career to even be considered in the unit. They are highly trained and ready to accomplish the very toughest missions in all environments, anywhere in the world, day or night, with unparalleled precision. Bottom line, if you want to be a helicopter pilot in the
I've
military,
never seen
the
them with
Army is your best
sleds.
shot. While some Army pilots
That's
do
cool.
fly fixed-winged aircraft such as the
Wow.
RC-12 Guardrail, C-12, and Sherpa, the majority will be on rotary-winged aircraft. But what else is unique to Army pilots? How about the fact that you can fly as a warrant officer? If you don't know what one of those is, it's essentially a rank in the gray area between enlisted and officer, who can pretty much do what they want. All jokes aside, this opportunity stems from the Warrant Officer Flight Training Program, or WAFT for short. And lastly, another unique opportunity for Army pilots is being able to start their careers in the reserves. Being a pilot in the military is typically a full-time job, but imagine being able to do it part-time. You can actually do that in the Army National Guard. National Guard pilots have the benefit of not serving on active duty for 10 years before they work in the reserves, which is usually the case in branches like the Air Force and Navy. Make no mistake, flight school takes years, and there will be active duty time, but it's still a cool opportunity to be able to balance civilian life while also flying some of the military's greatest aircrafts. With Army pilots covered, let's move on to the next pilot community, Navy pilots.
Oh, they are ruthless. They are cocky.
Would you believe us if we told you the US Navy has the second largest air force in the world?
Yeah.
Well, you better believe it. The Navy doesn't mess around when it comes to air power. Known for their wings of gold, pilots in the Navy are one of a kind. Resisting the urge to do another Top Gun reference, they have a wide range of skill sets and are a versatile force in the aviation community. Navy pilots are officially known as naval aviators, but that term is not exclusive to the Navy. We'll touch on that later. What sets Navy pilots apart from the other branches pilots is their relationship to the water. We're sure you saw that coming, because it is the Navy after all. Navy pilots are afforded opportunities to become fighter pilots, helicopter pilots, and fixed-wing pilots. The amount of aircraft that a Navy pilot has to choose from, or the Navy chooses for them, is quite extensive. To name a few, they can fly the SH-60 Seahawk, MH-53E Sea Dragon, FA-18 Super Hornet, and P-3 Orion. Due to their focus on maritime operations, Navy pilots possess unique skills compared to other military pilots. One example is landing on an aircraft carrier. While some may think, what's the big deal? It's actually a very difficult process. Think about it. A carrier can travel upwards of 30 miles per hour. That's a moving object in the middle of the ocean, relatively small to a land-based airfield, that a Navy pilot must maneuver and land on. It can be a very stressful event for them, especially at night. But it doesn't stop with carriers. There's plenty of helicopter pilots that land on even smaller ships such as destroyers or cruisers. That's no easy task. While Navy pilots' missions overlap a lot with other branches' pilots, their maritime focus offers them plenty of opportunities to work in anti-submarine warfare and maritime search and rescue. We said earlier that Navy pilots can become fighter pilots, helicopter pilots, and fixed-wing pilots, but it actually doesn't end there. Some can even become astronauts.
Oh, yeah.
There's even a Navy SEAL doctor astronaut in NASA. Imagine that. There's also the Blue Angels, which is the Navy's aerobatic flight demonstration team.
Look how
They perform
close they
air
get.
shows around the nation, conducting awesome maneuvers and showing off the badass
You sneeze, and it's over.
mastery of what it's like to be a naval aviator. And for you Top Gun fans, this isn't going to be another reference to the movie. We're talking about the real deal now. There's actually a Top Gun school that some pilots can attend, called the Navy Strike Fighter Tactics Instructor Program. Top Gun teaches Navy pilots fighter and strike tactics, who then return to their commands to teach those under them. With Navy pilots out of the way, let's move on to the Air Force pilots.
Oh. Exciting.
Yo,
Exciting.
Remember how we said the Navy's the second largest air force? Take a wild guess on who is number one. With the biggest number of aircraft in the Air Force, pilots in this branch have a wide selection of aircraft to choose from in their careers. The Air Force is known for some of its high-tech and deadly aircraft, such as the AC-130, A-10 Warthog, and F-22 Raptor. You can't fly these aircraft unless you join the Air Force. It is also the only branch that has bombers in its arsenal, and that's why pilots are a highly sought-after job in the Air Force. After all, the branch literally has the word air in it, so it should come as no surprise that a lot of people want to be a pilot here. Plus, who can deny the amazing quality of life the Air Force has? Here's the thing though, you're going to notice that a lot of things we say about Air Force pilots are going to be similar to what we said about Navy pilots. There's a lot of overlap in what pilots do in the military as a whole. It all boils down to the branch's culture, the aircraft they fly, and some of the unique opportunities that their branch affords them. Any of the tiny, fine detailed differences could take up its own video. Continuing on, Air Force pilots can be fighter pilots, helicopter pilots, fixed-wing pilots, you name it. Their roles and missions in military aviation consist of a focus on air-to-air, which involves a lot of radar training and intercept work as well as some dogfighting. But remember, that's just the focus. Air Force pilots are still trained in and execute missions along a wide spectrum of aviation objectives. One of those objectives is flying for special operations. Special operations pilots in the Air Force have the privilege of flying in special operations squadrons and supporting AFSOC. When we're not going to go into the details of it, they go through their own flight school, with a curriculum that's different from the Navy's. And, fun fact, they actually receive wings that are silver, not gold. And there's a way for them too to elevate their careers past the stratosphere, by becoming astronauts. It is not an unfamiliar stepping stone for pilots in the military to do this. The Air Force also has its own flight demonstration team called the Air Force Thunderbirds. Like the Blue Angels you learned about before, they too perform some sick maneuvers, showing off the abilities that these skilled and seasoned Air Force pilots have. The last thing we'll cover about Air Force pilots is the opportunity to pilot for Air Force One, one of the most recognizable symbols of the presidency. Select Air Force pilots can have the privilege to fly around the US president. That does it for the Air Force pilots. Let's move on to the next branch, Marine Corps pilots.
This is exciting. I don't ever hear much about them.
After going over Air Force and Navy pilots, we're sure you're starting to see a decent overlap in the various pilots of the military. Well, that overlap is going to get even bigger once we explain Marine pilots. Marine pilots, like their Navy counterparts, are also called naval aviators. They go through the same exact training as their Navy brethren, and receive the same wings of gold. If you're wondering where the differences are, they start to occur after they become pilots. The cultures are also different by the nature of the branches. Simply speaking, as far as the mission of Marine pilots goes, they have a bigger focus on close air support, and are typically involved with missions protecting and furthering the mission of the Marines on the ground. And speaking of the ground, remember what ground jobs are? It's the responsibilities a pilot has outside of flying. Marine pilots arguably have more of a ground job role than their other pilot counterparts. Essentially, they're a Marine first, officer second, and pilot third. You might be asking, what aircraft do they fly? Some Marine Corps aircraft that Marine pilots can fly are the V-22 Osprey, the AV-8B Harrier, and the F-35 Lightning. Another main difference between Marine pilots and other pilots throughout the military is the training they receive before they start learning to fly. All Marine officers, including pilots, have to go through the 6-month TBS, known as the Basic School, where they learn a whole slew of combatant and ground tactics. So if you're wanting to become a Marine pilot, you'll have to take a 6-month D.
I didn't know that. That's awesome. That's a lot. I don't want to say it's a lot more respect towards them, but it is. The things they go through, didn't know. That's cool.
After you earn your commission before you start learning to fly. Lastly, Marine pilots are reserved a spot on the Blue Angels we mentioned earlier, and the C-130 that supports them is a Marine aircraft. And Marine pilots also play a vital role in the transport and security of the President with Marine One. It's essentially Air Force One, but a helicopter. Just know that if you want to become a naval aviator and you happen to go into the Naval Academy, you'll have the opportunity to pick either the Navy or Marine Corps. If you're ever in that situation, choose your destiny wisely. With Marine Corps pilots wrapped up, let's move on to the last, but certainly not least, Coast Guard pilots.
Hey, Coast Guard, let me tell you, I have so much respect for y'all. Coast Guard is hard. Watch their basic training videos. You'll see. They get it in.
Those helicopters you see saving lives on the news every now and then, usually off the coast, those are Coast Guard pilots at work. The Navy isn't the only one doing maritime search and rescue. While the Coast Guard has the smallest pilot community compared to the other branches, with around 800 pilots to be exact, they still make a giant impact in military aviation. However, having a smaller community comes with some caveats. Less pilots means less aircraft. You're not going to have as many aircraft to choose from as compared to a pilot in the Air Force. But that does not mean that one cannot have a fulfilling and action-packed career as a Coast Guard pilot. In fact, due to the nature of the Coast Guard mission, Coast Guard pilots are able to be in some pretty cool lines of work. They even have designated search and rescue pilots, which needs no explanation for its badassery. While search and rescue is always the priority, it isn't always the majority. Coast Guard pilots can be a part of law enforcement and homeland security missions, all the way to marine environmental protection and aids to navigation. They even go through virtually the same flight school as their Navy and Marine pilot counterparts do. Coast Guard pilots receive the same wings of gold as the naval aviators, but while they share the same pin, they have a different name. Coast Guard aviators. If you're wondering what kind of aircraft the Coast Guard has, a few are the MH-65 Dolphin, MH-60 Jayhawk, and the HC-144 Ocean Sentry. With that said, it's safe to say that military pilots do some admirable work. Take for instance, Triple Ace Robin Olds. For those of you unfamiliar, a triple ace is a pilot who took down 15 aircraft in a single day. If you want to learn more about the legendary pilot Robin Olds, check out the audiobook Fighter Pilot, the memoir of legendary ace Robin Olds. Thanks to our sponsor of this video, Audible, you can...
What? 15 in one day? That's insane. Wow. Hey, that was cool. I learned some stuff, a lot of stuff I didn't know. Um, I always knew that there was some crossover between all branches. We have a redundant setup. Like, you have two infantries, Army, Marine Corps. You got two Air Forces, Navy, Air Force. You got two navies. We got Coast Guard. We got Navy. So we have that redundancy, and we're able to do multiple missions to get whatever we gotta do. It's so cool. It's if you've never actually sat down and thought about it, it's insane. Um, with that being said, I really appreciated this. I think I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, send me to a friend, send me to your enemy, send me to grandma. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, uh, I don't know, hook it up in the comment section. I'll get back to you. Hey, have a good day. Be safe. Bye.